This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. And today's guest really makes me want to be more experimental somehow. It's Michael Wiener of The Children with an ellipses. They've just released what is technically their second album, but good luck finding their first. Michael's household growing up was not typical. His mother was a pioneering photojournalist, and his father was a child Holocaust survivor. And they encouraged his pursuit of the arts and culture, which led him to violin and piano lessons. But his initial foray into professional music was not via a band, but as a critic. This is how he met his future bandmates in The Children, Jim Coleman and Puleo. The band has a very loose way of creating music. They do a lot of improvising and build their structure on that. Michael also explains how the band writes in layers, the malleability of memory, as well as the difficulties of writing in a band when it's everybody's side project. The Children have a new album out called The Craving on Erotox Records, and it is unique. It's delicate, it's heavy, menacing, and frenetic. It's a fascinating album. So go get it on Bandcamp, get it from Erotox or wherever you get music. Just make sure you use the ellipses. Check out their Instagram page at @thechildren_now. Follow us at PerformanceANX. Grab some merch at performanceanx.threadless.com or keep us awake with coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Now check out Michael Wiener of The Children with the ellipses on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Oh, would you like me to include it in my intro? Because I can. I mean, how hard could it be? Yeah. You mean I'm giving like an intro, like a couple sentences. It's not fragments, it's actual sentences, right? Okay. Okay, great. Whenever you're ready. Hey everybody, this is Michael Wiener. I'm excited to be here on Performance Anxiety Podcast, and I am here to talk about The Children's new record on Erotox Decodings, A Sudden Craving. Excellent. We like to get the hardest things. We like to get things done, and then we can have some fun. How are you, Mark?
Oh, I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just burning the candle a little bit, but pretty good. Good.
I know the feeling. One of these.
Yeah.
Rest when I'm dead.
Exactly.
So, all right. So you actually are a very creative person. You're involved in a lot of different things, acting, music, and I'm curious to know, growing up, which was the more driving force for you, and was it something that was promoted in the house? Was there a lot of music in the house? Was there a lot of theater in the house? How did you get into both aspects, and if there's more than just music and theater and acting, I guess I should say, what drove you to it, and was it embraced in the house?
Oh, excellent question. It's been a while since I've talked about my work, and I've been doing a bunch of it lately with this record coming out, and it kind of is a privilege to be able to sort of think about your life, your arc, your personal arc out loud, and kind of see how in other words, I'm learning something when you ask me these questions. You know what cool. I mean? So, I grew up in a pretty cultured household, and also a household in which there was a lot of sort of personal, I don't want to say baggage. You could say baggage, but my parents had some pretty complex personal histories. My father was a child Holocaust survivor, is a child Holocaust survivor. And he came from a pretty cultured, cosmopolitan European family, and had, kind of had a miracle of getting on the kinder transport and escaping Germany and coming to New York City and embarking on his career and doing all these things. And but I think that culture had always been kind of in his blood and something that was percolated through the family generationally.
Okay.
So it was important to him. And my mother was kind of an intrepid photojournalist for magazines and newspapers at the time, and in a way I would call her a maverick of sorts. And both there was definitely culture in the blood, and and I grew up doing some music. I took a bunch of piano and violin, And I kind of gave it up in, as adolescence progressed and as I went off to college, and came back to it as a DJ at Washington University in St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
And as and then as an arts critic and as a music critic. And so, I met some of the guys that I'm collaborating with as a music critic.
Wow.
A long time ago. So Jim and Phil, who have been in a bunch of bands, as you, I'm sure so bands like Swans and Cop Shoot Cop, which is a band that I think it doesn't really inform our sound on the face of it that much, but perhaps runs under the surface in subtle ways. But it's certainly a band that I think is quite influential that more people should know about, in the present day. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. But I don't know how familiar you are with Cop Shoot Cop, Mark. But I certainly recommend you delve in if you're not.
I remember when Ask Questions Later came out.
Okay, well, there you go. You have some awareness.
Yeah, I wasn't.
That wasn't even the last album.
Right, I wasn't super familiar. I was in college at the time, and my buddy's roommate had it. It had just come out, and he had it. He used to play it all the time.
Oh, cool. Oh, very cool. Very cool. So I met them when they were in Cop Shoot Cop, and this is before Phil was in Swans.
Okay.
So we have these sort of these kind of like lily pad type of paths that we hop from, we hop across the pond and we might end up in unlikely places.
Right.
So at the time I'd been trained as a writer at WashU, and people thought I was interesting. I was running around the downtown scene in New York, and I was writing about culture, and then I started getting involved in performance. I'm not sure if I'm going to digress too much from your question, but basically, music at that time was not, and I will say at the time I was asked to audition to be the singer for the Helmet offshoot Handsome, which was the band at the time.
I love Handsome.
End up happening, but it was asked. Yeah, exactly. So I was asked to join some bands, and nothing really ever fully came to fruition at the time. And The Children has been a long gestating project that has gestated alongside my performance and acting, career and body of work. Like I said, I was a writer. I then began to do performance art and perform in nightclubs, and I eventually began to train more seriously as an actor, and I've done a bunch of theater and film, and then continue to evolve as an actor and performer. But I think a great thing about my path, which has been pretty circuitous and incremental in some ways, has been the opportunity to, through both training and osmosis, gain a deeper understanding of my craft, and also the different dimensions that I can bring to different aspects of my work, different disciplines, So what I'm doing on stage with the children, or had done on stage in the past, the last time we were performed was right before the pandemic, and I think we'll probably transcend that this year with this new record. But there is an element of character work and the different things that I'm bringing to it. There's an element of storytelling. I'm sort of acutely aware of narrative, as a writer, and certainly as an actor who's used to deconstructing narrative and to finding an entry point as an actor, as somebody who's digging into a character internally and through a script. So, with the children, we do, one thing we do is a lot of, in a live setting, or even when we're building, writing songs, there's a real improvisatory element that then is brought, then we bring some structure to it. And so I think it's sort of like that delicate balance between improvisation and structure that we find in children. So,
okay. So you mentioned improvisation, and I have a question about that. That really influences the music, but also your acting. Which hit you first, improvisation in acting or improvisation in music? Or was it around the same time?
It's a great question. I think that improvisation is something that is, and it means something a little bit different when people are doing sketch comedy and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the spirit of it is, even when you're improvising, I think it's most successful when you have a sense of the trajectory or the arc of a story.
Okay.
So you have a sense of who your character is and what the arc of the story is, and you have an ability to listen to whoever is in the scene with you or on stage with you,
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PERFORMANCEANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD.
It's really a lot about listening. It's a lot about reacting to other people. And that's a big thing for me in my human relationships as well, is this idea of listening that I think can sometimes be a lost art. There's a lot of, when we're being interviewed, obviously we have a chance to kind of, run off at the mouth a little bit. But at the same time, people have trouble listening in this society from my perspective. And I think it's a really powerful tool. I think it shows, I think there's a grace to it and a generosity to it. And I think it also is a opportunity for the listener to learn. So if we're just talking, we don't necessarily learn all that much. We might be spouting off some information or whatever. So I guess when you're on stage, there's a synergy, there's a dialogue, there's an unspoken language happening. And I would say probably my first experience with improvisation came in a film or theatrical setting. But that being said, like, the children have been tossing around, despite this being really our first proper label release outside of a self-release we did, which I feel like I'm beginning to have the percolating fantasy of it being reissued because I think it would be appropriate.
I heard that today. I like that album a lot.
You did hear it?
Yes.
Oh, right on. You heard how did you hear it?
I found it on YouTube.
The self-release?
Yeah.
The whole album?
Yep. I believe it's the whole album.
No way.
Let me see.
No, but are you sure? No, wait. You mean our children or a different children?
No,
are you serious?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me.
What songs? Like what songs?
I got to pull away from the mic here for a second. Actually, let me do it on this computer. Let me see if I can find it.
That's insane. I can't believe this. You're shocking me right now. This is a total revelation.
All right. Let me pull up my notes because I have the link in my notes.
You're going to prove this to me. I'm going to be so shocked if this is actually true.
You got it. Let me pull up my notes. I have the link in my notes here, so give me 1 second. I'll tell you the songs that I like the most, actually, which I did mention in my notes here. Let's see.
You might be a better sleuth than me if you actually found something.
Okay.
I've not seen this.
My favorite tracks off that are September, Your Voice in Its Timbre, and Poison the Doorway of Your Heart.
Your attitude tore holes in me so crude. When I find myself poised in the doorway of your heart.
Oh my God. So you did find it.
I love those two tracks. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Let's see here.
It's like unlisted or something. I don't even know where you would even. How did you find it?
I'm a sleuth.
I don't want to digress. I don't want to digress on this too much, but I'm just shocked.
That's
crazy.
That's what this show's about. It's just a conversation. All right, so let me see here. The children. I'm gonna see if I'll let you know who posted it if I can find it.
Because I don't think it was us.
And I'll be on not tons of views, but
there's probably like 10. No,
39 for Your Voice in Its Timbre.
39 views. That's why I've never found it.
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious how you found it. What's that?
Because it was uploaded by CD Baby.
Okay. So did you look under CD Baby? Is that how you did it?
No, I was doing research and I found a link for it on Amazon, and I don't even remember if it's available on Amazon. I've got that link real quick here. Let me see.
That's nuts.
Yeah, you can buy an audio CD, one used audio CD for $8.95.
Well, that I have seen, but I didn't see a link, and maybe I just didn't look close enough.
2 vinyls, one for $15 and one for $199.
As it should be.
Exactly.
Yes, of course. It's a rarity. So, right.
And it is a little somewhat available on Amazon. And
well, you might be part of the movement to revive this, because I feel like it was a self-release and nobody heard it, and therefore we should. And we didn't even know it existed in this public sphere. So that's kind of incredible. Nice detective work, my friend.
Thank you.
That's wild.
Well, like and we'll get to this in a second, but it sounds quite different from the new album. And I was kind of shocked at how different it was. But
how would you describe the difference?
I would say the first one sounds maybe a little more polished, and the second one is a little more raw and heavy.
Interesting.
The new one is a little scarier sounding. It's a little more menacing. And than the first one.
Well, there you go. That makes sense. That makes sense. Although there are menacing moments on the first one, but you're right. It's a little bit more of an art pop record or something, and this is a little bit more of a primal scream or something.
Yes,
like that.
exactly. So how did you meet Phil Puleo and Jim Coleman? You guys are the main engines of the Children. How did you guys meet up and start working as the Children?
Well, like I said, we met up in the downtown scene. I was tossing around, going to Max Fish, going to these various clubs, CBGBs, et cetera, the Cooler, whatever it was, Brownies, et cetera.
Oh,
and
I remember Brownies.
I don't know how well you know the New York scene. Okay, so you know it. And, you meet people, you're mingling. The 90s in New York, it was like, this whole landscape of, it was a lot of fertile ground there to kind of invent your identity in a certain way.
For sure.
And so, and meanwhile, I was writing for Paper Magazine and writing for all these magazines, and I wrote a piece about them, and I don't even remember which magazine it was for. It was for kind of a small one, but it'll come to me. I have a tear sheet somewhere. And we might have known each other already. I mean, Jim was dating somebody that I knew pretty well, and there was some overlap, but I didn't really get to know Phil very well for many years. I mean, we did not know each other well. We just ran into each other here and there. Jim and I got to know each other a little bit earlier, but it was kind of a slow burn, as sometimes the best friendships and collaborations can be slow burns. So
for sure.
It's kind of a slow burn, Yeah. So
when did the idea start to record together? How did that happen? How did you guys just work out together? Like, hey, we really need to make some music together.
This is these moments where you have the partner who can sort of fill in the gaps. I'm going to say. I mean, there's this thing about memory and things. This thing about how we create memories, and sometimes there was just an article in the New York Times about this. And I did a lot of work at Dartmouth actually during the pandemic. I went back and did an interdisciplinary master's there and studied things like cultural memory and generational trauma and things like that.
Oh my gosh.
And memory is partly about about our perception of the memory itself and how we reshape it and how it evolves and how it's told to other people. And so a memory is a malleable object. It's not fixed. It has a life, and it has it's a bit subjective,
Oh,
so
for sure.
My memory of this is that Jim and I were maybe striking up a dialogue, and maybe we were chatting, and they said, hey, we should work on something. Like I remember I would instigate with collaboration with a lot of people. So my guess would be that I might have instigated it. I could be wrong. We can come back to Jim on this at some other point. My guess is that I instigated it. And we just started talking about it, and I'm just trying to figure out how we even wrote the first songs, some of which you've heard, because those were some of the first songs. So cool. I don't know I can't remember exactly, but we would go down to Jim's studio at the time. I guess at that point he lived in, let's see, where was he? I guess he already moved to New Jersey at that point, because then he moved into like Maplewood and South Orange, New Jersey, or West Orange, New Jersey. And so we would go into his studio, and I would come stay over for the night, and we'd have dinner with his wife, the filmmaker Beth B, and his daughter, who was growing up at the time. and is now in college. And we would go up to the attic, I guess after dinner, and we would just start playing around, and he would mess around with something, and I would come up with vocals on the spot, and and then we would bring it to, and then sometimes Phil would be there as well, but not on those weeknights. I think maybe we'd come back, and then Phil would add more instrumentation.
Okay.
So that's just one example of the way we worked. And what would happen is he'd be getting kind of like a repetitive, like get into a groove and be playing, and I would just start inventing lyrics, and then we'd kind of do it, and then we'd stop, and then I would write, and I kind of refine the lyrics, and then we'd come back into it, and now we'd try it again. Then we bring in the layer of Phil, and we bring in other musicians, and then we do a lot. So it was sort of like this layering effect of how it was done.
Interesting.
Just to kind of elaborate on your question.
At the time, it started off as improvisational music as well. Then
improvisational music as a way of writing music. Yeah.
Right. How did you guys decide on the name? I'm always interested in finding out how band names are agreed upon. So how did you guys choose the Children? Is there anything behind it?
I feel like I need Jim for this too. I feel like, I remember that it's the Children ellipsis, right?
Right.
So the suggestion is that there's more to that statement.
Right.
And my sense of that is that it's kind of a statement about the longitudinal aspect of life. The idea that, like, hopefully, as we gain wisdom, we're able to preserve a kind of untainted, pure spirit, and we're able to live life with abandon and seek and follow our impulses in a constructive, healthy way that doesn't damage anybody, but that we live life fully and deeply, and that we dig into the darkness of ourselves and find the light therein, something like that. So, and also just that the Children is an ongoing project. And so that we're cultivating the children as well. We're cultivating youth and trying to understand how important it is to honor the future in a certain way, and who's next. So I feel like the Children ... There's a lot of different valences to it. There's different levels, different, like anything. I think anything interesting, I think it has multiple meanings.
Oh yeah,
and layers.
Was the intention to play live when you started this band, and did you guys do that much early on?
Yeah, I would say we started playing live relatively early. Once we had some songs,
okay,
I guess we must have had an album's worth or close to an album's worth of songs. And one of the early places we played was Monkey Town, which was a space that had started in a loft and had gone to a proper space in Williamsburg, in which basically it was like a little as a square room in which people sat on these low-lying couches, a little bit like a Japanese steakhouse, okay. And behind them were screens. And so you're kind of in this enclosed room that's mostly enclosed by the screens, with room for servers to come in and out. And people would sit, and if there wasn't a lot of times they would mix, most of the time they would mix a live music thing with a video program. And so we were part of that, and we'd had a residency, and we played the songs. And at that point, we had the whole rotating cast, and we had another founding member named John Anderson, who did a lot of interesting keyboard stuff for us in the early days.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Anderson with the SEN. And then we had all kinds of different people from bands like Motherhead Bug and Cop Shoot Cop and different bands. And they would come in and out, but the core was me and Jim, and then Phil really, throughout in an enduring way. So we played a few days there, and we brought these songs, and people had like a curated menu, and they had this like multi-course meal. It's pretty cool.
Wow. That sounds
and eventually and I can't even remember what the video programs were, but we would accompany a video program. It wasn't necessarily that a video program would accompany us. I can't remember how they kind of balanced that exactly, but yeah, as Williamsburg continued to hyper-gentrify, eventually they left, and then they constructed these cubes to replicate the experience, and they did it around the world in places like Denver and Europe, and They did the Monkey Town thing, but as a kind of a pop-up kind of experience.
Oh, okay.
And,
Wow.
and it was never permanent again. They didn't like open another, restaurant video performance space. So yeah, that was where some of our most, I think that was a great gestating ground for us was there. And then we did perform some of these early songs there.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So the band's been together in total for about 15 years at this point. Is that about right?
I would say over 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. How active has the band been between the self-released album and the new album?
I mean, great question. Again, we it's kind of vacillated, and it's been it could be frustrating, but it's also been an opportunity to kind of, I don't know, find the nuances in a way. So, but yeah, I mean, after that, we would kind of like, maybe somebody be on tour, they'd be doing something else, or Jim would be doing his engineering production work, but we would consistently do, every couple of years we'd record new material.
Okay.
And we would have some shows, and then we would sort of lose track of it for 6 months or more, and then we'd come back, and then, we kind of had what I would consider a peak show at the old Basement series, which was in Max Fish basement. And I believe that was either the beginning of, I guess it must have been, it was in my memory as the beginning of 2020, but it might have been the beginning of 2019. I have to dig back on that. I could find out, but we had a real peak show there that really everything just kind of clicked into place, and it was just wild. It was just like, and it was pretty intimate space, but there was a lot of people packed in, and I just remember it as being a real concentration of our potency in a certain way. But we had done it, we'd been performing in anything with St. Mark's Church, and where they had a performance space, and we did kind of a multimedia show there, and then we did boutiques and theaters, so the Ohio Theater, and we did a fashion boutique in Soho, and then we did some rock clubs, and so we would kind of do, we did a fair number of shows, but it wasn't like it wasn't like all the time or anything. It was just kind of an accumulation over the years. And then we had the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then everybody had also spread out geographically and so on. And during the pandemic, the drummer Phil had a wedding. It was, I think, the first wedding we went to during the pandemic. It was, I think, the first plane we were on. And he was married at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago. And Chandra Shukla from Toxic Coatings was there, and we kind of hatched this. I guess he expressed that he knew the children, he liked them, he liked what he'd heard, and he was excited. And we just sort of gradually built this dialogue and gradually planned to do this record. And it took quite a while, in part because of the pandemic, to kind of come together. And now it's coming together, so it's very exciting. So we'll see how that affects our regularity in the future. In the meantime, of course, Jim is going on. He's getting a new super group with the Human Impact with guys from Daughters and Unsane.
Oh, wow.
And Phil's doing Swans and so on, and I'm doing various films and different things. So yeah, we're lucky to kind of be coming back together on this, and I think we're all excited about it being something really different from anything else we're doing. So
when you started talking about this album, were you pulling together songs that you'd already recorded, or is this all new material?
No, it was definitely not new material.
Okay.
Then it would have been harder to make it happen.
Okay.
We had recorded a couple of key sessions. One was a really memorable, Jim's partner, Beth's mother, is the artist Ida Applebrug, and we were up at her, I guess it was upstate, at a lake house. And we had these kind of like very sacred kind of meditative recording sessions where we would have these very meditative kind of lead-ins and lead-outs, and we would sit in there, and there were rugs, and it was like the classic, like low lighting, and the three of us, and it was just like very relaxed, and we were in a retreat kind of setting, and we'd have dinner afterwards, or whatever. But we'd be in there, it'd be like a temple, it'd be like kind of a sacred kind of energy. And we recorded a lot of the, according to Jim, again, that's why we needed somebody else's perspective, but according to Jim, we recorded most of the songs there. But I do remember there was another session that I believe was in Hoboken where we wrote a few more, and also some others that we now have. And Jim just remembered, I think in our last interview, he remembered that we have these other songs, so we should revive them for our next, we're talking about other things like an EP and a 7-inch to come to directly follow this one. And,
oh, wow.
And like I said, I think the re-release would be a pretty cool idea. So I don't know that anybody knows that's there. So I think I would love you to give me that on the chat or wherever, or email it to me so that we could we have we have the CDs, but like, it'd just be cool to have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so we recorded some of those songs then, and I guess there was another session in Martin Beezy's studio in Brooklyn that I can't remember what happened, but I wasn't able to be there, but it didn't really matter because we were just we had Norman from Swans and a theater guy named Johnny Gasper come in, and they did some additional, a little bit more, added some layers to the music.
Okay. I love Norman.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and then
he's been on the podcast.
Oh, cool. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, he's a great guy, really interesting artist. Really, really, yeah. So yeah, it was great to have him involved. And, live, we would often perform with Rock Savage and John Nolan from Bark Market as our rhythm section. And they really added, again, like the songs are a product, as I said in some of our press materials. It's a product of layers. It's the layers of the people we brought in and out. It's the layers of, at the core, it's definitely Jim, me, and Phil. But it's the people that have come in and out of the orbit who have been, invaluable. And then the audience and the live shows. And it kind of adds to the layering of the songs. And that's kind of one of the privileges of it being such a long process, is that we've accumulated, kind of all this moss that kind of, you can, as you said, you talked about it being raw and all these things, so I feel like that's a product of us kind of trusting the purity of this current material. And yeah. So, and then also there's the Kirsten McCord, the cellist Kirsten McCord has played with a lot of people, has also been involved in a lot of the live shows. Oh,
awesome. The new album is like we had mentioned earlier, a bit of a departure from I'm guessing from the art that I'm looking at. It was a self-titled first release.
Yeah.
So the new one, A Sudden Craving, first of all, is there something behind that title as well? I always like find the meaning behind names and things. I always find that really interesting.
Now, of course, it's the spine of the work, right? That's what we talk about in when we're, as actors, when we're working on a play. Why is this play called what it is? It helps inform the characterization,
right.
And the understanding of the narrative, where with the arc of the narrative. So yeah, in this particular case, I will say that I think we've already talked about it in a sense. The title on its face, I think, is provocative, because here you have a band called The Children ... and then you have A Sudden Craving being the album title.
Yeah.
So to me, that's somewhat provocative if you think about it. But at the same time, I think it does harken back to what we were talking about earlier, which is a craving doesn't have to be unhealthy. And I'm not talking about a craving for children. I'm talking about a craving. I'm talking about keeping that ability to tap into ourselves and understand the darkness and the lights, and to understand that we might have impulses, and to not have shame, and some of these qualities in our society that we kind of go to extremes. Either we're being incredibly narcissistic and indulgent, or we're being shameful and guilty and apologizing. So what about if we trusted our cravings and found a way to channel our cravings and understand that they can sometimes be sudden or impulsive? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, and following the path of those and seeing what it tells us about ourselves and seeing what we want to do about those cravings, because we all have cravings, and, some are healthier than others, right? But we find as adults, we find a way to balance them in such a way that we can be responsible human beings and then not hurt other people and fit into society, and
hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. And, and have a holistic, well-balanced, fulfilling life, so that would be on its, that's my first impulse. Impulse.
Yeah. I like that
word again. And sort of tapping into what the name is about.
Was this album written in a similar fashion, more improvisational, working and slowly building on the songs?
I would say so, yeah. Okay. I would say so, yeah.
I know you'd mentioned that, these are songs that have been recorded over the past several years.
Even way beyond that, because in other words, we didn't record since the pandemic. So this was before the pandemic.
Right.
So we're talking about the mid to late teens,
Wow. Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, my.
So it's a really long time. this band this is kind of the miracle of this record, I like to say. We did not have, we were known in New York downtown, like people, there was some interest, with people, as a live act and everything, but there's no press, you just found this YouTube link. There's no press. We all have press from other projects, but not from this project. And so this is kind of the first time that we have an opportunity to kind of share it with the world a little bit and be properly documented and everything. And yeah, So it's exciting, but it's definitely like we've been tossing around for a long time, and it's kind of, I don't know too many bands with this kind of trajectory. It's kind of like an article of faith, and a real sort of emblem of persistence and sort of resilience that we're even still talking about this, and doing it.
I've been listening to the album for the past several days, and man, it's grown on me a lot. The first listen, I was just like, this is really interesting. I can hear, like you mentioned, a little bit of Swans and Cop Shoot Cop influence. But as I'm listening to it, I'm like, this is just its own beast. It's amazing. I mean, so the first track, God is a Bereaved, to me, that is a frightening track. And that sounds like it could be something from like, maybe like Celtic Frost's Monotheist. It's that is one of the most menacing songs on the album to me. It is a hell of a way to open the album.
A garage, a gosh, God is a bereaved.
I know, Jim. We did have a little bit of an argument about that. I was like, do we really want to start with this? I was like, well, it'll get people's attention, I guess. I mean, it's definitely like, whoa. It's
an attention grabber for sure.
And the daring thing about it is a lot of these songs have a lot of space too. So it's sort of like they're not really frenetic necessarily. I mean, some of them are frenetic, but not that one.
Right.
That's got a lot of space. It's kind of like this dark sort of kind of hovering space. It's like sort of simmering and percolating and burbling and kind of, it's kind of like seeping. You could say it's seeping, I guess.
It is. It's like the True Detective of music.
Okay. Wow. That's, I'll take it. Excellent. I like that.
But on the opposite spectrum,
yes.
Opposite end of the spectrum, I should say, Melon-Faced Briar.
Light, but, melon, face, briar, prick, teasy, queasy, breezy, dot.
That, a little bit more frenetic. That is one of the most strange and intriguing songs, not just on the album, but that I've heard in a long time. How did you guys come up with that song? Because I don't even know how to describe it. I'm going to have to definitely put some clips in this.
Yeah, I need to.
What is a Melon-Faced Briar?
I've been around these so long, I don't even freaking remember. Well, the Melon-Faced Briar. I mean, here's the thing. We talked about, there's a philanthropic family, the Mellons, who have I don't have the history in front of me, but it's a history of kind of like a robber baronish kind of family that did some good works.
The Carnegie Mellon.
And we thought about titling it Melon-Faced with 2 L's, so it would be like the Mellon family. But then Melon-Faced has kind of it's kind of unique. What's a melon face exactly? That's a thing is, a lot of my lyrics come out as poetic fragments, and then I try to tie them together. The narratives can be clearer in some songs than others. They're generally not particularly clear, as I'm sure you've noticed. They're generally pretty oblique. They're generally a bit obscure, but there does seem to be some narrative operating. And I have to even look at the lyrics because I can't even, but yeah.
Well, like you said, you recorded this quite a while ago.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious while we're talking about it, just to look at the lyrics. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm improvising, and they're jamming and they're doing kind of getting into a repetitive, kind of going into a cycle of kind of a groove, and then I'm making these lyrics, and then we're stopping and we're coming back, and I'm sharpening the lyrics, and it's that kind of thing. So
and there's that spooky laughter in there, and it's just it's a really wild track.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad we can't play it right now, so I can just kind of get into it. But
unfortunately, it wouldn't sound too good through. No, I'd have to figure out a way to minimize it, because I go in afterwards and I'll put in clips.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now. So you have the lyric sheet anyway, right?
Actually, no, I don't.
Oh, because you don't have the album yet. You just have the, what do you have, like the SoundCloud or something?
Howard sent a link to SoundCloud to stream it and downloaded the files so I could put them into the podcast.
Well, there is a lyric sheet. And as you can hear in Melon-Faced Briar, that actually is one of the more, shall we say, ostensibly simplistic lyrics, where it's really just kind of like these, speaking of impulsive, it's just these kind of like, it's like an expulsive. It's kind of like a Tourette's song or something. I mean, in other words, this is sort of like this cavemanish thing, but yet the ideas and I think that the images that are created and so on are kind of interesting, but this is just kind of somebody just taken out of their subconscious and just kind of spewing, And so it's like, I mean, I heard it the other day. I played it for a friend and I was like, this could be a club track,
Oh yeah.
It could be a club track.
Absolutely.
Because it's kind of hard, but it's kind of like bouncy and fun, and it's kind of demented.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be like a demented club track,
You could do a whole EP of Melon-Faced Briar remixes.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I love the insane horns on Gelded Half Moon.
The reverence, the reverence, the reverence slide.
I think those are amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
But I think my favorite song on the album is Breathing Shards. It's just this, at the same time, it is heavy and delicate. Your vocal performance is very delicate. The music is very heavy. And I love that dichotomy in music, in a lot of things. But when it's done as well as Breathing Shards, it hits me right in the, I don't want to say feels because I hate that term, but it hits me right in the heart.
I think that I like how you characterize it as heavy. You capture the lightness and the kind of delicacy of it, and then you talk about the heaviness that I guess you're talking about in some cases, in that particular case, because that's not as outwardly heavy as something like God is a Bereaved, but
right.
You're talking about a kind of a subtle heaviness. It's something like that's kind of underneath it in a way.
Exactly.
I guess, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's my favorite song on the album. I absolutely love that track.
Well, it does feel like a bit of a single. I mean, it's a bit more like it's a bit more of a song. I mean, they're all songs, but it's a little bit more like a classic songcraft where it's almost like a ballad, or it could be like a Neil Young track or something like this. But our version, of course.
Yeah,
it's different, but it's got a little bit of that reminiscence or that kind of influence or something like that. I mean, I don't really even know what the influences are because I just kind of go, we just go and we see. And I think we've all been around music and we've had all these, absorbed a lot of things, but we don't think we consciously try to create a particular sound, which I'm pretty proud of,
Yeah.
But thank you. Yeah, it's one of my favorites, So yeah, I appreciate that.
I mean, I'm looking at the tracks here and it's just A Woven Mother, A Flame is it's another great track. I mean, the first 4 songs to me it's an incredible sequence. Those first 4 in particular, I absolutely love. It takes you all over the place, musically, mentally. It's really and I would love to do an episode on the art of sequencing an album. So this is the kind of thing that I love. How you figure out which songs go together and what fits best after this. Do you want a stark contrast? Do you want something that sounds similar? And the way you guys sequence this is fantastic.
Yeah, I can't remember. When I told you there was an argument about it, and now I can't remember to how much degree I said, let's do this. and to what degree Jim said, let's do this, or whether I presented a sequence, I might have, or whether Jim, I'm trying to remember exactly how it took shape, but you know, you have the end result.
Yeah.
So,
and it's fantastic.
But you talked mostly about the first side. I'm just curious, Mark. You talked mostly about the first side, and how I don't mind. I don't mind hearing how the second side affected you, because it sounded like it was different for you.
It's.
Or are you still getting acquainted with it? Or
a little bit. I like the first side more than the second side. I like the album is fantastic, and I don't want to make it sound like I don't like the second side, because I do.
Yeah.
But my favorite tracks on the album are on the first side for sure.
Interesting.
I do love Guiding Your Age Her Way. Like I mentioned, Melon Faced Briar is great, and Their Autumn Was Erased is my favorite off the second side.
Again, it's sort of an epic, sort of anthemic. Yeah, it's a bit more of a lot of open space, and we did that. Yeah, there's a live track of that on YouTube actually.
Oh,
actually,
cool.
There's a live track of that and God Is a Bereaved on YouTube.
Oh wow! Somehow I found your first album, but I missed those. I got to go look those up.
Yeah, they don't have a huge number of views either, but they do have about 500 or whatever. So they're there.
Oh,
we can get them to you if you need them, but you should be able to find them, especially since you did the detective work on the first one. I would just put in like our names, and then the song titles, like for those two, and I'm pretty sure you'll find them.
Oh yeah. I'll check it out.
They were performed at La Mama, which is a theater in New York, so that might also be helpful.
Oh, okay, cool. In fact, let me put that down in my notes here.
And then you'll get to see me live at that stage, which was a number of years ago. But it'll be kind of interesting because it's kind of a wacky. You'll see. But it's,
so speaking of live, are there plans to play and support this album with live shows?
Well, listen, the more people are interested and the more we get sort of notice for the record, the more I think it'll spur it on. But I think that, Chandra has been very supportive. There's definitely talk about, and again, we're just trying to figure into everybody's schedules. But I think like people's opinions change when they see that people are interested and, people are going to, bring us somewhere or whatever. But like we have a potential European leg that we're cooking up in Berlin and around and in Europe. That would be like, I don't know how long it would be for, but like maybe a week. And I think we could potentially have some New York shows. And I think that there's possibility for things like Chicago and who knows what. I just think it's kind of, we're at a fairly early stage. So I appreciate your being part of this process, Mark. And I think we're going to see how it takes shape. But I certainly am quite interested in, after all this time, it would be a shame not to do more live stuff. So I think we'll find a way.
I hope so, because the recorded stuff is amazing, and I always love seeing bands live. And I live a little outside of Washington D.C., so if you guys can get down here, I'll be at a show.
Oh well, listen, I grew up in Chevy Chase.
Oh, okay.
So where do you, if you don't mind my asking, where do you live?
I live in Winchester, Virginia.
Okay, so you're not in the DC metro, but you're accessible.
I go to DC all the time. I do a lot of concert photography in DC. So
oh, you're kidding? Very cool. So how long does it take you to get to DC, if I may ask?
About an hour and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
So
cool.
Not terrible.
Well, Winchester's an interesting area. Yeah. Okay. Wild.
I love it. It's like Norman Rockwell
out there.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It is. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love. Raise my kids out here. So.
Oh, you're kidding. Yeah. Virginia has its complex histories and all that. But that being said, it's beautiful country and there's a lot of great people there. And I never judge. I never make a sweeping judgment on a place. I always want to explore and meet people individually. And I'm in Virginia often, so I know Virginia quite well.
Oh, sweet.
My mother, who we lost some years ago, had a after my parents divorced, and she and my stepfather opened a bed and breakfast in Harper's Ferry. So that's West Virginia, but it's near Virginia.
I'm so close to that, it's not even funny.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Harper's Ferry is a beautiful town.
It is.
And then there's Shepherdstown, of course, which is a cool college town and also quite beautiful and a lot of history there.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of cool stuff out there. Sperryville is another place where my cousin has a restaurant that's doing quite well there. It's kind of a destination restaurant.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Did you say Sperryville or Berryville?
Sperryville. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And, Rappahannock County.
Yep.
So yeah, I've had plenty of great moments in Virginia.
Oh man, well if you guys ever come around, let me know. First of all, I will shoot whatever. If you guys come down, I will shoot the show and
let's keep the conversation going. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Middleburg is another place we've spent a bunch of time in as well.
Middleburg's gorgeous. So much money there.
Stuff, so yeah, exactly. So
Middleburg, Upperville.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, it really is. It's beautiful country. And in fact, it's funny because I'll actually, when Swans comes to DC, I'll be shooting the show, and I'm taking my oldest daughter's coming with me.
So you're going to be shooting the show like yourself, or did somebody bring you to shoot the show? How's this going to work? I
will be shooting it for a live music blog that publishes in the area. Mm-hmm. It's called Park Life DC. And I'm trying to think. I'm shooting it for them, but Howard actually got me on the guest list. So
good.
So I'll be there with the photo pass, taking pictures. So yeah. Oh, I can't wait.
That's excellent.
I've never seen Swamp before. It's not for a few months. I don't remember exactly when, but it's not.
Well, and what is the venue?
You know what? Let me look that up real quick.
It's not a big deal. I'm just curious.
Yeah. No, I actually kind of want to know now too.
You didn't even tell me that I somehow pulled out a second pair of glasses while we were talking. Did you see this?
I did.
That was crazy.
I did.
That was nuts. I can't believe I just did that.
I thought you were improvising.
How stretched I am at the moment. I'm not even realizing putting a second pair of glasses on my head.
They're playing at the Howard Theater.
Cool. Okay.
So
you're going to make sure. Yeah, make sure. By then I imagine this will be out, and the children's record will be hopefully steamrolling along. And make sure you say hi to Phil and tell him about our chat. I would love everything. Make sure you do that. Yeah.
Let's see. April 12th. That's what it is. April 12th.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll get up to meet up with Phil. I definitely want to meet up with Dana Schechter because she's been on the podcast and we stayed in touch, and I love Dana. So.
All right. Sounds like you got a lot of interesting guests on the podcast. Cool.
I've actually had a bunch. I would say like 30% of my episodes involve swans in some way or another. I've had Michael on twice. So and I didn't get into into swans until doing this podcast like 4 or 5 years ago. So, or maybe 6 now, but
very interesting.
Yeah. I knew of them, but again, it was one of those bands that I heard it and I was like, these guys are a little scary for me. There's an intensity here that I don't know I can deal with right now.
Yeah.
So, but once I went back, I really got into them when Howard sent me Leaving Meaning, and I just thought that was one of the most beautiful records I've heard in a long time. I thought, all right.
Well, they're coming into a different stage. Yeah,
they sure are. They sure are. Well, I don't want to keep you all night, so let me find out from you the best way for people to support the children, buy the album, help encourage you guys to tour. What's the best way for people to support the band?
Well, I don't do social media, but I know that the children have now started an Instagram account. So there will be that. And, I'm trying to see how public let's see. Well, because, Jim and Phil have Instagram, I guess. And then I would ask Howard.
I'm sure Errata Talks will have
Errata Talks will have, I think it's going to become clear as in March when the record comes out. I think the Errata Talks will, however this sort of rollout's going to go. I'm not even sure. But Howard might be better at answering this question. But definitely there will be a children Instagram account when people should definitely get involved with that. And, maybe I can have some fun. I mean, I don't think I'll ever have my own social media account, but maybe I'll have some fun dealing with that. I mean, I don't know that I guess I must be considered one of the administrators. I don't know, but we'll interact with people there. And
if not, you ought to
whatever else Howard suggests and Chandra suggests, we'll make it happen, So I think this is a work in progress.
That's perfectly fine, man.
Do you want to, you're welcome to my info, or you can, and also I would love to get a link to that children record.
It's
funny that I'm asking you, but it's kind of funny, but why not? Very cool, brother.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
second.